Hello, everybody. Good to have you back after a couple of weeks off for summer vacation. Let's call it. It's we're in Chodesh Elul, so that means everyone's kind of slowly getting back to the norm. And but you know what, summer was nice, and at least we got to have 5 shiurim even during the summer. This is shiur number 6 of our Tzurba Mirabanan series. We are in the middle of Hilchot Tzitzit. Actually, we're still the Pticha of Hilchot Tzitzit, the introduction, technically. We're learning from Tzurba Mirabanan, volume number 8, and this is where we are, page 110 or 112 in these other books. I think 108. So it is 108. Okay. Oh no, I'm 10. You're 108. Sorry, I'm 10. You're 108. One of those two pages. We're speaking about garments today, not made of wool or linen. Last shiur, we spoke about is there an obligation to wear tzitzit? We looked at the sources. We spoke about the differences between kesut yom and kesut laila. Today, we're going to look at wool and linen and other materials and what is considered a mitzvah or a garment that obligates us to put tzitzit. And we'll look at some other things as well. Some other ideas. It's a very good way to get yourself really, I guess, in the know, because you go to stores, Judaica stores, and you'll find all various types of tzitzit. Today, you can go, you have a synthetic, you got t-shirt tzitzit, you got, what do they call that, mesh, you have dry fit tzitzit, dry fit now, that's a popular one. So you got all different types of things. And we're going to look at it today. So we're going to start off with the Gemara in Masechet Menachot. The book brings the Gemara very long, a long Gemara, but it shortens it, but it's still long in our books. Let's read it. Amar Hava Marav Yehuda Chutet Tzemer Potrin B'Shel Pishtan. Wool strings exempt a garment made of linen. Meaning, this means word potrin here means that if you put wool strings on a linen garment, that's good enough. That's what you did. You had a garment that required tzitzit, and now you put wool strings. Chazak baruch. You did what you had to do. B'Shel Pishtan Potrin B'Shel Tzemer. And strings of linen exempt a garment made of wool. And all wool and linen strings, okay, exempt a garment, even if that garment is made from shirain. Here is translated as a type of silks. This last point disagrees with Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says, "Hashirain silk peturim min tzitzit." They are exempt from tzitzit. If you have a silk garment, you don't have to wear tzitzit, or you don't have to put tzitzit on the garment. You still have to wear tzitzit, by the way, but you don't have to put tzitzit on that garment. Itevei Rabba Rav Nachman. Rabba raised an objection to Rav Nachman. Hashirain v'kelach ve'asrikin kulan chayvim tzitzit. So there's a braita that says that this silk and this kalach and this srikin require tzitzit. The Gemara answers midrabanan. When it says that it requires tzitzit, it's not a biblical obligation, but rather a rabbinic obligation that requires tzitzit. Next Gemara, Rava raises a contradiction that says, the pasuk says, Ktiv hakanaf, the corner. Til hakanaf. So what does that mean, the corner? It means min kanaf, that the fringe has to be the same type as the same material as the corner. The tzitzit has to be the same material as the corner. That's what we learn from hakanaf. Uchti, but then it writes semen upishtim. Another pasuk, semen upishtim. You have to put your tzitzit. Haketzat. How can that be? How can you have the same material yet ask semen upishtim to wool and linen, two different materials? So the Gemara answers semen upishtim potrin ben beminan ben shelo beminan. If you're wearing wool and linen fringes, strings, then that will fulfill your obligation, whether your garment is wool or linen, or whether or not it's not wool or linen. But sha'ar minin, if you have different types of strings, if you have strings made out of silk, then beminan potrin, silk strings will only help if you have a silk garment. The shelo beminan en potrin. But if you have silk strings with a wool garment, it won't work. That's how this Gemara answers. wool and linen is no, so it's not wool and linen together. First of all, even wool and linen together for tzitzit is fine, but wool and linen is not in reference that they're together here. The wool means if you have a wool or linen strings, can fulfill your mitzvah of any type of garment that it is. Now, that's Rav Nachman. Now, Rav Nachman, Ketan de Rabbi Ishmael, he holds of the Tana de Ishmael that says, "Hoil v'neimnu begadim batorah stam," since the Torah, right, or the word garment is used without specification. Uprat lecha katuv be'echad mehem tzemu pishtim, and then the pasuk specifies wool or linen. Af kol tzemu pishtim. That tells me all garments in the Torah have to be those made of wool or linen. So according to Rav Nachman, only wool and linen can act as tzitzit versus Rabbah who says no. We're going to see this machloket later on. Comes Abaye, Amar Abaye. Abaye says, "Vaytana de Ishmael, mafka meidach Tana de Ishmael." This statement of Rabbi Ishmael is different than another statement by Rabbi Ishmael that holds that all fabrics are good. The Tana de Ishmael, pasuk says beged en li ela beged semer. That tells me that only wool. How do I know that even camel's hair, and rabbit's wool, and goat's hair, and the different types of silks are also good? Talmud Omar, o beged. You have this pasuk that says o beged, the word o, or serves as the amplification. Okay? So this long Gemara is summed up over here in the next box that says that the Gemara notes a dispute between Rav Yehuda and Rabbah, who also felt that, and Rav Nachman of whether silk is subject to tzitzit midoraita or just midrabanan. And then the Gemara addresses an apparent contradiction regarding the position of the school of Rabbi Ishmael. According to the first source, Rabbi Ishmael holds that only garments made of wool and linen are subject to tzitzit by Torah law. And according to the second source, all garments are subject to tzitzit midoraita because of the word o beged. Now we're going to get to machloket. Sure, go ahead.
When they say semer, it's I assume it was
rabbit
fur, but it must be like the fur, no?
Yeah, it's not wool.
Wool is
yeah,
like
it's just
out, but
it's a fur.
Must mean
it's a fur, yes.
Fur or leather.
No, it's not leather. It's definitely not leather because leather you can't be.
No, but the rabbit is leather. No, you can't shear, or you do shear rabbit.
Yeah, you could. I guess if it grows long enough, you could. Yeah.
Okay, and then do you see cotton here? Like would silk be equivalent to
So
cotton?
that's what we're going to see. We're going to see now. Anything that's not wool or linen, that is natural, is in its own category. Masha'en can synthetic things. Okay, which is not cotton, right? Because they don't grow. That might be categorized as something else. Yes.
So you're saying that wool and linen, doesn't matter which part of the tzitzit is wool or linen, they can mix and match. But if you have like silk tzitzit, you have to have a silk base.
According, if you want to fulfill the mitzvah of with a silk tzitzit, okay. No, so if you have a silk actual strings, you will need to be, according to that opinion, that you can even use it. It's not everybody in the Gemara that says you can't. But according to that opinion, you would have to have a silk garment. Okay.
So linen grows from the ground, right? Wool is an animal, so that would take in everything that either grows from an animal or grows from the ground.
Yeah. Okay. So what we have is a big machloket here in the Gemara, which is going to be addressed by the Rishonim. Rav Nachman holds that only wool and linen you're chayav deoraita. Everything else is derabanan. And Rav Yehuda, or also Rabbah, says no, that everything else can be a deoraita if you put wool and linen strings on it. Okay? So let's look at the Rambam. Rambam says, Kesut, we're in source number 20. Kesut chayav adam lasot batzitzit mina Torah. The garment in which a Torah obligates you to put tzitzit, he kesut shesh la arba knafim, is a garment that has 4 corners, or yoter al arba. Betiyeh haksut shel tzemer or shel pishtan levad bilvad. It must be the either wool or linen in order to fulfill your obligation. Now, have you ever worn wool tzitzit? Anyone own wool tzitzit? Right? You wear it. No, that's talit. Yeah, same thing. You're right. I'm just talking about the undergarment, but you're right. Talit would when we speak about tzitzit over here.
The wool undergarment, that's like the one that looks like the black.
Yes, that one. I should point out that everything we're saying here applies to talit as well. Okay, when the Shulchan Aruch is talking about hilchot tzitzit, he's not saying hilchot talit. There is no hilchot talit. Tzitzit, same thing applies. It turns out the majority of the world does wear a wool talit. Okay, maybe except those maybe reform conservative silk scarves, one of those. But most people wear a wool talit. But you see a lot of difference, right? So we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that. And one of the main reasons why people don't wear a wool tzitzit is because of the heat that it generates. Wool is a very warm fabric,
Probably also the least comfortable.
and it right. It's itchy. It is itchy. Although now they have wool tzitzit that feel like undershirts. They're very pricey. I own 2 of them. Yeah, I bought them in Israel. They're very thin, very thin. They don't go over. They almost wear like a t-shirt, but it's made out of wool, and it's a bit heavier than the typical t-shirt cotton ones. But anyways, we're gonna get to that because there is, believe it or not, there's some achronim that address it. They say that if it's too hot, then it might not be considered a valid beged. We're gonna see that.
Be categorized as like tzitzit senda, the one you're.
Of course.
Yeah.
Semer. It's wool, 100% wool.
Yeah, but it's like wool with whatever added to make it.
No, nothing. It's just really thin,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Yes.
Before we carry on, is it an obligation to always wear tzitzit, or only if you have a beged that is required?
So we spoke about that in the first class. So you're right. Technically, according to the letter of the law, it's only if you have a beged.
Like I don't always wear tzitzit.
Yeah, only if you have a beged that's 4 corners, then you have to put on tzitzit. However, we learned about all that we recorded the Kafahayim and maybe that became custom of Klal Yisrael. There's so many segulot that are involved. Person protection. His whole body is covered with the mitzvot. The tzitzit represents all 630 mitzvot, right? Because the gematria is 600 plus the 8 strings and the 5 knots. So it became something that is very much a part of our lives, and that's where we have. Now the avera would be to wear a 4-cornered garment and not have tzitzit. Okay, then you would be violating this commandment. Okay. You'd be violating a deoraita if you wore a wool garment and you didn't have a tzitzit attached to it. But we want to fulfill the deoraita, so we actively go.
It's almost worse to wear the tzitzit, the rabbanan with that are not. If they say it's only the rabbanan for the strings, but it's as if they're not there, so it's almost worse to put like if it's not the raita and the strings that like with machloket, it's probably worse to put strings that are not.
That are not
good, halachically deraita, because then it's like that's like they're invisible. It's like they're invisible.
Again, if you have it's at least a drabanan. If you have a non-wool garment or non-linen garment, but we're going to see there's some that hold even that's a deraita. All right, that's the machloket the Rishonim right now.
One of the corners is, let's say, not kasher.
Oh, that's a different shayla. Those are different halachot. Maybe we're going to see later on. Yeah, we'll see that later on. Like, there's a lot going on over here. Yeah, if it has to be corners. If it's rounded,
it's like you're wearing it 4 corners without tzitzit.
Well, if indeed it is an actual corner, then yeah. If it's not a corner and it's rounded, then it probably wouldn't be chayav tzitzit to begin with, right? So the Rambam says, in order for it to be a Torah obligation, it has to be wool or linen. Aval halacha bet talit shel shar minin kegon bigdei meshi. But a garment of other fabrics like silk, ubeget semer, tzemer gefen, which he calls cotton, ubigde tzemer gmalim, or camel's wool, tzemer arnavim, or hare's wool, minotah shel izim, goat's wool, וכיוצא בהן, אין חייבים במצוות ציצית אלא מדברי חכמים. It's only a rabbinical obligation to put on those tzitzit on those garments. כדי להיזהר במצוות ציצית, just so that we show regard to the mitzvah. שכל הבגדים האמורים בתורה סתם אינם אלא אצלנו בשביל בלבד. Whenever you see the word beged in the Torah, in any context, he's making reference to tzarat, the beged tzarat. It talks about having a stain of leprosy on your clothing. So that's in reference. It has to be also wool and linen. He's saying anytime you see the word beged in the Torah, it's wool and linen. So therefore, same thing that we see with regard to tzitzit, that it has to be wool or linen. So that's the opinion of the Rambam. Comes the Rosh. The Rosh, of course, was Ashkenazi, and then we're going to see the many of the Ashkenazi poskim hold differently. Rosh quotes Rabbeinu Tam, and he says, "Rabbeinu Tam pasak tehilcheta kerava." That Gemara that we quoted at the beginning of the Shiur, we don't follow Rav Nachman that says it has to be wool or linen for it to be biblical, like the Rambam says. No, we follow Rava. Rava was the one that argued with him. Why? They have a batra, because Rava was a later authority. He came after Rav Nachman. V'chen pasak Rashi b'tshuva, and that's what Rashi says as well. Afagav de'taran de Ishmael k'Rav Nachman halacha kerava. Even though the school of Rabbi Ishmael held like Rav Nachman, the halacha is like with Rava. He says v'teimahu, because this is weird. This is astonishing. Lama pasak karav alfas k'Rav Nachman. Why did the Rif accept the position of Rav Nachman, or Rif and the Rambam? Keva de Rabim plige ale. Look at the Gemara. Look how many people argue with Rav Nachman. So he's wondering, why did the Rif and the Rambam argue with him? Rav Yehuda, Rachava, Rava, these three people argue with Rav Nachman. So imishum tana de Rabbi Ishmael, if it's because the Tana, it was an actual Tana of the school of Rabbi Ishmael, ha'ika Tana de Rabbi Ishmael acher, the Savakavatayu. There's another Tana that argues. So he doesn't understand. The Kamar Amar Abaye. So ha Tana de Rabbi Ishmael, mafka meidach Tana de Rabbi Ishmael. So the Rosh is at odds. He's at odds with the Rif and the Rambam. He doesn't understand why they were posek, why they held like Rav Nachman, who seemed to be the sole opinion in that Gemara, because you had Rava and Rachava and Rav Yehuda, and you even had a Tana de Ishmael all argue on Rav Nachman that say you could wear other garments and fulfill your obligation biblically. So he doesn't know where the Rif gets that from. And when you fast forward down to the Shulchan Aruch, you will see a big machloket between Sfaradim and Ashkenazim. Let's look at
Rava. He's just unequivocally saying that if we go back to he's saying that it's Doraita, or he's not really clear. I mean, is he holding that it's Doraita? Rava, when we read Rava in the Gemara.
Yes, he says that.
I think this is a steer. How can it
yes.
sound like?
So the wool and linen strings can exempt any garment deoraita, and strings made of any other type of fabric can exempt only that fabric. But you could. So what do we see over here?
We see that other.
You see that other fabrics. If you're wearing wool,
cotton, you have to wear cotton, or
if you wear cotton with wool strings, you're deoraita. It's a deoraita. That's what he's saying.
That's the machloket.
That's the machloket.
That if you're wearing a cotton baguette, that the strings have to be wool,
yes,
or can be wool.
Well, to be a deoraita, according to Rava, as long as you have wool and linen strings, you fulfill your biblical obligation on any type of garment. Any type of garment. But Rav Nachman says no, it has to be a wool or linen garment. And that's no. So Rav Nachman said, if you wear a cotton garment with wool, you're only fulfilling midirabanan. So that's the difference. So comes Shulchan Aruch, and as expected, the Shulchan Aruch is going to follow the Rambam because he was Faradi, and the Rama is going to argue, and he's going to follow the Rosh. So we look at source 22. Says the Shulchan Aruch, "En chayav besisit min Torah ela beged pishtim o shel tzemer rechelim." That the only thing that gets you the mitzvah biblically is a garment of linen or wool. Sheep wool. Has to be sheep wool. Aval bigdei sha'ar minim en chayavim betzitzit ela midrabanan. But if you want to wear silk, you want to wear cotton, then you only chayav midrabanan, rabbinically. And that's how the Shulchan Aruch holds. Comes the Rama, Haga, ve'yesh omrim, dekulu chayavim midoraita. The Rama argues and says, what are you talking about? There are those that say that all garments you're chayav deoraita to put on tzitzit. Ve'hachi hilcheta. And that is the halacha. He's like very, very strong with that statement. You don't often see that with the Rama to say ve'hachi hilcheta, but he feels very strongly about this. Now, the question is, my nafkamina. Why do I? What's the difference? What's the difference like between wool and linen and cotton? So that's where the Mishnah Berurah comes over here, and he says that really we should try to be strict, like the Shulchan Aruch, and wear a wool or linen garment. So look what he says. The Mishnah Berurah says, source 23, Elam Drabanan. After tzarich levarech al mitzvah, she'im Drabanan gamken, goes, first of all, you also have to say a beracha. Even though it's a Drabanan, you have to say a beracha. Mikol makom nafka mina le'inyan kama dvarim. There are some practical applications, differences between this. Number one, the yoter ra'ui la'asot beged shehu yotze bo min haTorah. It's proper to make a garment through which he satisfies the Torah commandment. So for sure, according to all opinions, wool and wool, or linen and linen, get you that requirement. Number two, im nitarev lo tzitzin tavin lishman v'shelo lishman. If strings that were spun with proper kavanah became mixed with strings that were not spun without proper kavanah, ve'eno tzitzit acherim, and he does not have other tzitzit, or sheyesh lo safek ala beged imu chayav b'tzitzit, or he's unsure if the garment itself is subject to tzitzit. De'imum drabanan sfeka drabanan kula. If it is Rabbanan, now we have a problem, because there's a rule that says safek Rabbanan. Whenever you are in a situation of a rabbinical mitzvah that you're not sure or not whether to do or not, the kula means you don't have to do it. So he's saying, why put yourself in that position? If you have strings, the strings have to be tovei lishman. Okay, that's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch, meaning you have to actually spin the strings of wool with proper kavanah. L'shem mitzvah tzitzit. Even today, by the way, I think I mentioned this in the first class, that even today, where you have machines that are doing this, okay, the act of spinning the wool is done by a man sitting there. I've seen it, okay, with his feet or hands, whatever it is, putting that thing nonstop. L'shem mitzvah tzitzit. That's why it's important to get like good hashgacha tzitzit, because some guy can just put in a machine and then, well, what's going on? There has to be kavanah. So what happens if it got mixed? He like one batch of tzitzit came out good, like he had proper kavanah, and the other one he was spacing out, or he started the day, he forgot to say l'shem mitzvah tzitzit, and they got mixed. Now you don't know. If you're saying it's a drabanan, then now you have a safek lekula. Okay, I don't have to put on. I don't even have to put on anything here. Or in a situation where you don't even know if the beged requires tzitzit. That's another safek. Someone gives you mesh. Someone gives you synthetic stuff. It's a safek. So if you're telling me it's a derabanan to begin with, then don't put on tzitzit, the kula. So why put yourself in that predicament, says the Mishnah Berurah. Just go buy wool tzitzit and make sure that you do it. Another, imhu yosef betzibur, number 3. If he's sitting in the congregation, and one of the strings snaps, if it's only rabbinic in the obligation, it must be that he's not obligated to remove his talit right away, because human dignity overrides kavod habriot. Right, that's why. Right, yeah. You ever heard the law that if you don't have tissues on Shabbat, you only have toilet paper. You can't rip on the seam, right? Because doing so you might be transgressing a deoraita. So they tell you if you have to do it not on the seam. But how can you do that? Even ripping, right? It might not be a deoraita, but it's still the Rabbanan. You're ripping, you're tearing. How can you? Are you telling a guy go and tear on Shabbat? Because there's kavod habriot here. There's human dignity. you can't leave yourself dirty. You can't leave yourself dirty. And if you have no other way of cleaning yourself, so the Rabbanan is overridden by the human dignity. You understand? That's what he's saying over here. So now you have something, one of the string snaps. Okay, I got to remove. If it's a deoraita, if you are wearing a talit and one of the string snaps, and it's wool, you know what you have to do? You can't wear that. You have to take it off. You have to take off your talit, because if the talit's made out of wool and you're missing a string, you're wearing a four-cornered garment that doesn't have tzitzit. What? No grace period. No grace period. Well, we're going to get to that, but it's somewhere close to the top, right? Somewhere close to the top, especially if it's from the base, from where the knots are, then for sure, right? So you have to remove the garment, because then you're transgressing a biblical law. But if it's a derabanan, if your garment is cotton, and you're considering it as a derabanan, then kavod abriot will tell me that you can't remove the garment, because if you remove the garment, you're going to be without clothing. It's not respectful. Back then, this is what they wore. This was their clothing. It was like, it was like this big, huge coat, four-cornered coat with strings. Now, if it was derabanan, you don't have to take it off. Okay, so there's big nafkaminas here. Mexican poncho, yeah. Yeah. Last point he says over here, when he quotes the Rama, Behachi Hilcheta, that this is the halacha, he says, V'yireh shamayim yachmid al atzmo lachush le'de'ah rishona. Someone who is God-fearing should be strict and comply with the first opinion. V'yaseh talit shel tzemer, and make a talit of wool, kedei shitchayev b'sisit min haTorah lekulei alma, so that he should be chayav in tzitzit according to all opinions. V'nachon she'yaseh ben talit gadol u'ben talit katan shel tzemer, and he should do both the big talit and the small tzitzit of tzemer. Okay. Now the Chazon Ish says what he says over here with regarding to the climate. So it's brought down by the Rabbi Victor Nebenzahl in source 24. Ubeshem Chazon Ish masru. In the name of the Chazon Ish, it was said, Shelo lavash talit katan shel tzemer, that the Chazon Ish never wore a wool tzitzit. Now, I want to say, before we continue, the Chazon Ish was often known to be one of the more machmir poskim of all of the last two generations. Right? Always. One of the examples I can give is when it comes to a cup, the minimum size of a kiddush cup for kiddush on Shabbat, or the 4 cups of Pesach, you have to drink arba kosot. So the cup must hold at least a reve'it, which is 86 or 87 milliliters. Okay, something like this, something this small. Okay? The Chazon Ish says it has to be 150 milliliters. Okay? Meaning your cup has to be much bigger than that. And of course, you have to drink most of the cup, right? So that's a lot more wine you're drinking on the night of Pesach. Okay? So he's known to be more strict. And now we're saying, he's quoted as saying, I never wore wool tzitzit. And we know wool tzitzit is the best. Ve'amar, so what's it? He said, Shecham lo betalit shel tzemer. He was very hot. He lived in Eretz Yisrael, lived in Bnei Brak, the Chazon Ish. He was very hot. Ve'lachen legabav en lashem beged. He holds that it didn't even have status of a garment. Kemuvar be'tosot masechet nida. Like Tosfot says, Masechet Nida, shebeged she'eno ne'eneh bilvishato, eno chayav latil bo tzitzit. Any garment that a person does not benefit from wearing does not chayav b'tzitzit. V'admor, agav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, amar shekevan shelovsho l'shem mitzvah chashi beged. Shlomo Zalman argued, he said, no, since you're wearing it for the purpose of a mitzvah, it does consider it a beged. So look at that, amazing. You have the Chazon Ish who never wore it because he didn't feel it had the status of a beged. If I'm suffering from this wool, and I'm
yeah, but I feel like you could say that towards any, like you could say, oh, I'm just gonna take the Chazon Ish's de'ah.
Yeah.
Any extra layer, I can't. Like it's uncomfortable, and I can't. I'm sweating or whatever.
Okay, so look what the Yakuza said, right?
Also,
Yeah.
like when you play sports.
Yeah.
That
So it's a good question. Do I have to, right? Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question. 100%. To wear. Obviously, there's a lot of people that do wear tzitzit when they play sports, and kolakabo to them. But it's not an obligation. The Maaseh, it's not an obligation because it's not comfortable.
That's sports.
It's not part of sportswear. Okay, maybe that's the problem. You buy the dry fit ones, then you can say that it is sportswear. Now you have to wear it. Okay, but the Maaseh, it's not comfortable. It's not considered sports. It doesn't have a status of beged for you playing sports. So it's okay to take it off. Okay, take it off. I know that some people disagree with that, but the Maaseh, it can be done. It can be done. The Rav Vadia or his son, Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, who is coming next week, B'ezrat Hashem, he is coming. Yeah, he's coming here to Toronto. No, I don't think he's coming to Tequila Center, but he's doing Yachei Kala downtown, and then he's going to do a slichot next week on Thursday morning. Yeah. Ra'ui v'nachon lilbosh talit ha'asuya mitzemer echelim. He says it's proper and correct to wear tzitzit made out of sheep's wool. Ve'af ha'tzitziyot sheyu asuyot mitzemer echelim, and even the fringes should be made of sheep wool. Ve'af b'mei ha'kayitz hachamim. Even during the hot summer days, yesh leitametz ve'libosh talit katan shel tzemer. He should try to make an effort to wear talit of wool, or talit katan, tzitzit of wool. However, if it's impossible because of the heat, you're worried that the guy's not going to wear tzitzit at all, he should wear a talit katan whether made out of cotton or other materials. So he's saying, at least you wear cotton. There are opinions that hold that cotton you'll be fulfilling your deoraita, right? Especially the Ashkenazim. So he says, at least do that. You're going to get a deoraita according to.
But in the morning, you are making wool.
Yes.
You are fulfilling your
Okay, you're right. So that's a question that Moshe asked, right? So like, okay, so I still have, you still want to wear tzitzit. It's a gulav wearing tzitzit, it's protection. But yes.
I love when our brothers in Israel, even the you don't know if they're from or not, but they don't wear kippas, but they wear, you can see underneath, they wear
the word tzitzit. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. Let's look at other materials. So we're back in the Gemara, source 26, Gemara Menachot. This statement that I said, and it was saying in the west, and Eretz said the name of Rav Zeira. He shel beged uknafea shel or. And if a garment is made from cloth and its corners are made from leather, hayevet. So you're wearing wool. You're wearing a wool garment, or any garment, mind you. Okay, according to Rava, any garment. And the corners of the garment are made from leather. Now, why would someone make leather corners? Last longer, right? Because the corners wear out fast. So if you make the leather of a stronger material, you make the corners of stronger material like leather, they'll last longer. You would have to put tzitzit on that. However, he shel or uknafea shel beged ptura. If you're wearing a leather jacket, but the corners, you cut corners, and the corners are made out of wool, no tzitzit. My ta'ama, what's the reason? Ikar beged ba'inan. We need the main part of the beged to be obligated, and therefore, Rav Achai Azab Bataknaf, Rav Achai would argue and he says, no, you follow the corner, but that's not the halacha, we follow the main part of the beged. So now, says the Levus, En chayav betzitzit ela davar anikra beged. Only something that is classified as beged requires tzitzit. Dichtiv ve'asu lahem tzitzit al kanfe bigdehem. On the corners of your beged. Ubeged hu kol davar hane'erag ba'ariga v'na'aseh beged. The definition of beged is something that is woven. Le'apukeh milbush shel or, to exclude leather, she'eno nikra beged, which is not considered a garment. Ve'eno chayav betzitzit afilu yesh lo arba knafot. Even if you have four corners, no tzitzit are required on a leather garment. Lefichach, im haya talit kulo shel beged v'knafea shel or, if the talit is made out of fabric and the corners of leather, kilomar shebekol makom ha'arug en sham knaf ela hu agul, meaning there is no corner in the woven portion, it's just rounded. ותפר בו חתיכת עור ועשה שם כנף, and someone put a patch of leather and made a corner, חייבת בציצית. You have to put ציצית there. שכן משמע כנפי בגדיהם. כנפים של הבגד יהיו הכנפים מה שיהיו. The corners of the garment, no matter what the corners are, as long as the rov of the garment, as long as most of the garment is an actual garment, then even if you have leather corners, then that's fine. אבל היא של אור וכנפיה של בגד, but if the garment is made of wool and you put, if the garment is made out of leather and you put wool corners, ptura, then it would not apply. Okay, fine. He also brings there from the pasuk asher techaseba, which means that it is the main material that covers you, and therefore you have to look at the main material. So what about synthetic garments like nylon, polyester? How do we look at this? So we have two opinions here from Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank, the Har Tzvi, and Rav Moshe Feinstein. Okay, so he says, "Ulinyan shelatenu hine benylon yeshne minim." He said, when you look at nylon or synthetic, you have two types. Yesh min nylon hasui kulo chaticha achat velo mechutim. You can find a synthetic garment that is not woven; it's one piece. Ve'enu maase oreg. Ubetalit mimin ze, and a talit from this type, ladat halevush, according to the levush, hoil velo ne'erag, since it was not woven, en alav shem beged leitchayev besisit. It does not have the status of a garment because nothing is woven there. Ulam yesh gam nilon ha'asu michute nilon, but you can also find synthetic garments that are woven together. Vehu maase oreg, vetalit mimin ze, vadai shu nichla bichal beged bechayev besisit. So most of, as far as I'm concerned, I think the synthetic garments that we have today are woven. It's not one piece, but according to the levush, at least, that is the prerequisite. In order to be chayav tzitzit on one of these garments, they have to be woven.
Not like a canvas wood.
I'm sorry?
Like a canvas material wood ends. But like anything that's threaded or thread.
Yes. Let's look at Rav Moshe Feinstein. Let's not read. We'll read it in English. So he says, let's look at the second paragraph. He was asked about nylon or rayon. So I responded that stands to reason, in my humble opinion, that these materials are exempt from tzitzit, even according to those who hold that garments of all fabrics are subject to tzitzit. Look at what Moshe is saying. You can't wear nylon. You can't wear polyester. None of this. Even according to the people that said that you would be chayav in all other garments. The reason is that they agree that there is a beged which is exempt from tzitzit, such as a beged of leather. And this is so, although there is some room to differentiate from garments made of leather, which to threads that have been woven. There, it was already whole leather, which was amenable for making garment out of it as it was. Therefore, although someone first altered it and cut into threads, it is not considered woven. However, regarding the materials of nylon and rayon, if they were first fashioned to threads, perhaps they have the status of weaving, which is unlike leather. But ultimately, it's not logical at all to differentiate, because in the end, they are unlike garments of wool and linen. After all, does it state in the Torah that leather is exempt, such that we would therefore say that something unlike leather is not exempt? The Torah doesn't mention anything about leather. The Torah only mentions about wool and linen. So it's not that the Torah says you can't put on leather. So let's compare everything that's not leather. Let's say everything that's not leather is chayav. It only tells you what are the necessary conditions to make tzitzit, wool and linen. The term beged is used as the basis for creating the obligation. Therefore, the garment must be comparable to a beged. Leather is unlike beged. So therefore, these garments are also not like beged, and therefore should not be subject to requirement. So Moshe is strict. He says you can't wear dry fit. You can't wear polyester. You can wear cotton, okay? Because cotton is a beged.
You put it just doesn't do anything. I mean, it's not required to wear tzitzit, and it doesn't require. So you can wear a four-quarter
You could wear, meaning you could wear a four-cornered polyester garment,
Right.
and you don't have to
Like
put on
you're not doing
tzitzit.
anything.
Yeah, it's not like you're not doing anything. Yeah.
The point is-
Yeah.
Or he just says it's exempt. But that just does that mean that it's not? You don't even get a Tzurba for that?
No, I don't think so. It's just from his words. They wouldn't. Yeah.
I guess it's like the leather. He's comparing it like the leather.
Now the Tzitz Eliezer disagrees. Tzitz Eliezer in the middle of the paragraph says one may not wear such a four-corner garment without affixing tzitzit to it, because it is certain that such garments are no worse than other materials that are not wool and linen, especially when woven. So he disagrees. However, with respect to the bracha, it's best not to recite a bracha, okay? Especially that the brachot en me'akevot. So I mean, brachot en me'akevot means you still fulfill the mitzvah even if you don't say a bracha. If I shake the lulav and I didn't say a bracha, I still fulfill the mitzvah. You know, the bracha is not me'akevot. Yes. But yeah, of course, but he's saying over here not to do it. Okay? He's saying not to say the bracha in that situation. Safek brachot la'akel, right? You don't want to.
I might have missed it, but what's the importance behind having begeds that are woven? Like why is the Moshe Feinstein saying that?
The definition of a beged is something that is woven, because that's what the Torah uses the examples of semer and pishtim, of wool, a beged of wool and linen. How do you ever see wool? Wool in its raw form is sheep, is sheep, right? You got to take that and create a garment that is woven, right? So therefore, since that's the beged, Rav Moshe is saying that's a requirement.
So it's like it's inherent that these begeds, like wool linen, are going to be, they have to be woven. That's why it's classified as woven garments.
Yeah.
Maybe in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, in the biblical times, they only had. Did they have anything else besides?
No, I don't think so.
So then the Torah was just calling out beged, but how do we?
They may have had cotton. Cotton, I think, was around, but I don't know if they had. Yeah.
I don't know.
So what is Rav Yosef Karo hold that we're allowed to dry fit with tzitzit or no dry fit?
Rav Yosef Karo says all he says is that to fulfill the oraita, you need to have a wool garment. Okay, that's what he says. Rav Ovadia is very machmir. The person should try to fulfill the words of the Shulchan Aruch to have a wool garment, so that you know so that you're fulfilling the thing.
But they don't have any opinion about dry fit or about Mexican ponchos. Like they have no opinion on that.
What that means be a derabanan, right? It'll be a derabanan, and according to Sam, it would be a deoraita. According to the Ashkenazim, it would be a deoraita. Okay, we'll finish this. Last piece here is the Piskei Tshuvot. He says the conclusion of a number of great authorities is that there is room to differentiate between a garment made of a sheet of nylon without weaving, which is exempt from tzitzit, and common nylon garments made from woven nylon threads, which should be subject to tzitzit if they are four-cornered. However, certainly every God-fearing person should be scrupulous not to fulfill the obligation of wearing a talit katan with garments made from synthetic materials, and even those who are lenient may not recite a bracha upon such a garment. It's important to mention over here that the mesh tzitzit might be a very big problem, because the mesh tzitzit is not a woven material. As far as I'm concerned, I don't consider it a woven material. Now, although there are opinions like we said the Hartzvi that says that you probably could do it, probably is okay, but lemaaseh, it is and it's really hard to classify that mesh as a beged. You barely feel it, right? You barely feel it.
The point is, let's say you're going to do sports and it was either the mesh or nothing. Just you need to don't even bother.
That's what I'm saying. Don't bother. Certainly, I wouldn't say a bracha for the Ashkenazim that say a bracha on tzitzit. Fardim, we were poter with the talit, but certainly I wouldn't say a bracha on a meshitzit. I don't feel that. Again, this is my opinion based on the poskim that we just saw. It's
dry fit? Dry fit is different.
well, dry fit is like a polyester is okay. So it's woven today. Today it's woven. So it would be chayav at least on a drabanan level. It would be chayav.
I'm not going to the Moshe.
It seems that Rav Moshe wouldn't. You're right. Rav Moshe would not hold.
With these other opinions, yeah.
Yeah. Last piece over here, and then we'll conclude. Women and tzitzit. So the Gemara says above that women are exempt from the mitzvah of tzitzit because tzitzit does not apply at night. Uritem oto. You have to see the tzitzit, and you can't see at night. Although back then it was talking about with no electricity, can't see at night. So therefore, it is a time-bound mitzvah, and we know that time-bound mitzvot women are exempt. So that's what Shulchan Aruch says. Nashim ba'abadim pturim mipnei shehi mitzvat aseh shazman grama. Women and servants are exempt because it is a time-bound mitzvah. Now we do know that if you have a mitzvah that a woman is exempt and she performs and she wants to do a mitzvah, it's a machloket Sfaradim and Ashkenazim whether they say a beracha or not. So Sfaradi women don't say a bracha if a woman wants to shake the lulav. She could shake a lulav, no problem, and she'll fulfill a mitzvah, but she does not say a bracha because she cannot say asher kideshanu. She was not commanded. But Ashkenazim women do. They do say a mitzvah. They will say a bracha al nitlat lulav, or they'll say lishe basukah. All these mitzvot, they will do it. Now, and it's on this that the Rama says, "Umikol makom, im rotzim le'atefo ulbarech alav." If a woman wants to wear tzitzit and recite the bracha, hareshut biyado, she can do so. Kemo bishar mitzvot aseh shazman grama, just like all the other mitzvot. However, michse keyuhra, very famous Rama. She seems to express too much piety, too much. It looks like she's showing off. That's the lashon of yuhra. V'lachen en lahen lilbosh tzitzit hoil ve'eno chovat gavra. And therefore she should not wear tzitzit, since even for men it's not an obligation. Again, you only have an obligation when you have a four-cornered garment. Okay, so that is the opinion of the Rama, and it seems to be accepted with by most ladies don't wear tzitzit. Let's look at the note here at the bottom, number 15. You'll see Aruch HaShulchan, who elaborates about this issue and concludes that women should not be allowed to practice this mitzvah. In addition, some commentaries write that a woman donning tzitzit violates a prohibition of not wearing a man's garment, lo yilbash. See Targum Yonatan ben Uziel. On the other hand, Rav Moshe Feinstein, in a letter written to Rav Yehuda Kelmer, considers the possibility of a woman wearing a distinctly different colored garment with tzitzit as being acceptable if she does so for sincere religious reasons, as opposed to feminist motivations, though he himself was unsure whether individuals with sincere motivations existed in this time. I mean, you don't really know. Because a lot of women want to wear tzitzit not because they have religious motivations or spiritual motivations. They're doing it because they're upset. Dafka, you told me I can't wear tzitzit. Now I'm going to show you I'm going to wear tzitzit. That becomes a feminist motivation. And the Rav Moshe said that's not good. But if you want to wear it for spiritual motivation, it's a different color. He says he doesn't see something wrong with it. Rav Eliezer Melam and Pnina Halacha rules based upon this responsion that women who wish to wear tzitzit may do so in private to avoid the issue of yuhara. He does not consider the lo yilbash as the normative one among the poskim.
Why would you want to wear tzitzit? Something else to wash. You have enough.
And that's so it seems to be that Baruch Hashem, but that's our minhag today. We don't see women wearing tzitzit, but it's an interesting response from Rav Moshe Feinstein. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So the Rama here says that at the end, though, is not obligation.
It's not obligation for men. Yeah, we know it's not obligation for men.
It's not
But we
obligation
spoke
for
about in the
men.
first week that the segulot, that cup, it's brought down, kaf hachaim, the arizal, the protection. You're wearing the whole Torah, all the mitzvot on you. The tzitzit has the gematria of 600 plus the 8 plus the 5. Your whole body is covered in mitzvot kilu, and therefore all the poskim right. Yizaher, a person should do his best to wear tzitzit, and that's what it is.
That's at
But
the start of the book.
well, the start of this section of tzitzit from that we did last week. All right, if you go back to
Oh,
page,
here, that's why.
yeah, I know, page 101 to 110, you'll find it. Okay, guys, Chazal Baruch. We'll continue next week. B'ezrat Hashem. Have a wonderful start back at school and at work.